As a contemporary manhwa, the plot of Plaything is influenced by some of the greatest fears of the modern world, and these fears end up becoming part of the story. Imagine this situation. With the advances in AI, society is increasingly sponsoring the intrusion of this technology into our lives. AI-equipped watches that can even capture our heart rate, movements, and breathing are sold as desirable consumer items. And it even seems cool at first glance. But what if at some point, instead of just being a cool utilitarian accessory, these watches start to have their use imposed by criminal organizations by force without our consent? What if these watches cease to be a utility and start serving as virtual handcuffs, making us prisoners in our own homes? Inside or outside our homes, we would be continuously monitored by clocks or by cameras strategically placed on every inch of the street, observing all the actions of citizens 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And now imagine that the police forces who are supposed to protect citizens and could save people from these abuses end up becoming corrupt and turning into just another armed arm of these criminal organizations. Finally, you realize that you live in a corrupt system completely dominated by criminal organizations disguised as government and legality. You are trapped in your own home, you are being continuously monitored, and you are being forced to perform exploitative labor just to feed this perverse and oppressive world. Are we still talking about fiction? The most recent arc of Plaything takes place in the Dosu district of Busan City. Meet two central characters in this story, the brothers Mu-han and Tai-han Kang. Under the leadership of the two brothers, a small illegal labor agency was born in the Dosu district 30 years ago. This agency would come to be called Shaft Gang. To promote the growth of Shaft Gang, the talented brothers managed to capitalize on two major real-life events that impacted South Korea in the 1990s. The first, in 1990, was the War on Crime, promoted by the South Korean government, targeting criminal organizations, drug cartels, and human trafficking. This war culminated in the weakening of the main gangs in the country. The vacuum resulting from the weakening of these gangs allowed Tai-han Kang to promote Shaft Gang from a small illegal agency to the dominant criminal gang in Dosu in the following years. The second historical event recounted is the Asian Tigers financial crisis of 1997. In this crisis, changes in the Thai economy resulted in financial problems in all countries of that bloc, forcing them to resort to IMF loans and, as a consequence, to adopt heavy restrictive measures imposed by the organization. During this period of the financial crisis, Kang Mu-han managed to seize control of a bankrupt company. With the explosion of the shipbuilding industry during that period, this company would grow and become Dosu Marine Crankshaft, the main company in Dosu. Controlling 60% of Dosu's GDP, the Shaft Gang directly or indirectly controls the people who work and live in the district. And they even secured control of the region's police force. With economic and paramilitary dominance of the district, the Kang brothers can then commit crimes without being bothered by the rule of law. And in this way, Dosu became a large prison, both for its residents and for the people unfortunate enough to become targets of the Shaft Gang. But that's history. Let's jump to 2021. When the fate of the Kang brothers crossed with the fate of Assemblyman Cha. With ambitious plans to reach the top of power in South Korea, Assemblyman Cha saw a great opportunity to seize the criminal platform set up by the Kang brothers and execute several of his political crimes. But he went further. Assemblyman Cha added a touch of dystopia to this already desolate context of Dosu, with the implementation of the Advanced Public Safety Infrastructure (APSI) project in the region. But not everything would be so easy. Some resistance could occur in the execution of Cha's megalomaniacal plans, and this resistance came through the re-elected mayor of Busan, who restricted funding for the expansion of APSI outside the Dosu district. The mayor of Busan was an opposition politician who had been elected 3 times in the city. This resistance lasted until 2024 when suddenly this mayor died. The death of the mayor of Busan motivated the organization of a by-election in the city. In a short election, lasting only a few months, Cha could install a puppet candidate, and thus finally obtain the necessary funds for the continued expansion of APSI in Busan. And in this context, the figure of Kim Sung-duk emerges. Kim Sung-duk, a corrupt police chief who not only embezzled funds from APSI, but also maintained relations with the Shaft Gang and was complicit in the crimes committed by this organization, making the entire Dosu police force an ally of the gang. And in return, at the behest of the Chaz, the Shaft Gang would finance Kim Sung-duk's political ambitions as well as provide manpower for his campaign. Thus, Kim Sung-duk launches his independent candidacy to assume the position of interim mayor of Busan. However, in addition to this indirect support for Sung-duk's candidacy, Assemblyman Cha further facilitated this campaign. First, coincidentally, the opposition candidate was implicated in a sex scandal, weakening himself politically for the election. And second, the ruling party itself did not field a candidate to compete for the mayoralty. With resources and without the competition of the two largest parties in South Korea, Kim Sung-duk would become a strong independent candidate to reach the Busan mayoralty. In this context, it is clear that Kang Tae-han is very aligned with Assemblyman Cha, following orders to the letter, without question. However, in 2025, this submission to the Chas would end up creating a rift between the Kang brothers, which will be important later on. So we finally arrive at the present, when Karma enrolls at Dosu Commercial High School to continue Lee Hyena's revenge plan. Karma and Lee Myung's plan would depend heavily on the electoral context of Busan and the political ambitions of both Kim Sung-duk, the Shaft Gang, and Assemblyman Cha himself. Even with resources and weakened opponents in the electoral race, the order for the Shaft Gang was to avoid criminal incidents in the region until the election. Kim Sung-duk's political trump card was the illusion that the Dosu district was a safe place because of APSI. If the Shaft Gang broke this narrative, Sung-duk could still lose the election. Even with intense monitoring and control over the population of Dosu, there were those who tried to seek help from the press, attempting to publicly warn about the situation in the district. And these people would be the main risks to Sung-duk's campaign. We realize that the relationship between Kang Tae-han and Kim Sung-duk is far from harmonious. The two are not bound by affinity, only by the convenience of Tae-han being the provider for Sung-duk's campaign and by Tae-han's obligation to secure the Busan mayoralty. Although Kim Sung-duk is not yet aware of the reason why Assemblyman Cha is the biggest sponsor of his campaign, Tae-han was fully convinced that their lives depended on Kim's victory in this by-election. A defeat would imply that the Shaft Gang was useless to the Chas and therefore liable to elimination. This lack of synergy between the two opens a gap for Lee Myung to break the bond between Sung-duk and Kang. Thus, Lee Myung kidnaps Kim to begin negotiations. The terms of the agreement were simple. Lee Myung would provide financial support for the continuation of Sung-duk's campaign and guarantee the elimination of the candidate's political vulnerabilities. In exchange, Kim would guarantee Dosu's police support during the confrontation against the Shaft Gang, as well as protect Karma in case of any danger from them. Just as with Song Jin-tak, the terms of the proposed agreement for Kim appeared generous, and Kim ended up sealing the deal. Kim Sung-duk would become a double agent. While still pretending to maintain ties with Tae-han Kang and the Chas, he would comply with the terms of the agreement with Lee Myung. Shortly after this agreement, we have confirmation of the arrival of a package at the port of Dosu. Speaking of ports, let's take a small detour and talk about the port of Dosu itself. On one hand, it represents the economic power of the Shaft Gang through Dosu Marine Crankshaft Inc., which allowed the Kangs to economically control the entire region. On the other hand, the port also represents the site of the execution of the most heinous crimes committed by the Shaft Gang, such as murders and kidnappings. And finally, the dispatch of kidnapped people to YL Island. One of the objectives of YL Island is to confine political adversaries of the Chas, and to produce compromising material that would later be used for blackmail. And although this island is a political asset of the Chas, both YL Island and the very existence of the Shaft Gang have one aspect in common with the four Cha henchmen: useful while carrying out their missions, and undesirable when they lose their usefulness. Moo-hun Kang knows this. Unlike his brother, Moo-hun is not comfortable with the Kang's submission to the Chas, as he is aware of the risk of the Shaft Gang itself being eliminated as soon as they become inconvenient for the Chas. And, for Moo-hun, it was only a matter of time before that happens, as the four henchmen had just been eliminated. Moo-hun was convinced that they would be next, but unlike his brother, Moo-hun will not faithfully obey the Chas, hoping for the best in the end. So he devises his counteroffensive, which basically consists of fighting fire with fire. Moo-hun knows that the incriminating evidence produced on YL Island is hidden on the island itself. And this evidence is not only incriminating for the victims, but also for whoever ordered it produced. Thus, obtaining it would mean that Moo-hun could secure his life against Cha Kang-hyun. However, this evidence is well protected against theft. Moo-hun hired specialists to devise the best way to confiscate these documents, but they would still need more time and more people. While these teams are unable to overcome these protections, Moo-hun would have to wait. However, Moo-hun warns that their time has already run out, and all that remains for them is to hope for the success of their undertaking so that they can survive the Chas the next day. And returning to the port, that same night, Tae-han and Kim Sung-duk have a decisive conversation. In this conversation, Tae-han reveals details that Kim was unaware of until that moment. Starting with Assemblyman Cha's true intentions in the region to expand Dosu's criminal platform throughout Busan, and that Kim's own candidacy had the sole purpose of serving both the VIPs of YL Island and the Chas. The reason for this revelation was to try to convince Kim Sung-duk to abandon the agreement with Lee Myung and to get rid of Karma and Chief Bak himself. Tae-han's speech corners Sung-duk. He felt at a crossroads between fulfilling the agreement with Lee Myung or continuing Cha Kang-hyun's plans. In this context, he finds his answer. and we will have to wait to find out what that answer will be. And so, we arrive at today. D-Day for Ah Hyun's execution, the decisive day for Lee Myung's plans, Moo-hun's plans, and even Kim Sung-duk's plans. It's still unknown how these plans will intertwine, as the story is still unfolding as of this present date. We could discuss some theories and attempts to guess what's to come, but let's leave that for another day.